Very well, fine. I'll tell you everything. But not here. Let's move to the top floor. Junpei nodded. That they climbed the stairs to the top floor. Snake was silent for a moment after they arrived, then finally crossed his arms and spoke. I suppose I might as well start by telling you why I kept quiet, and why I made sure Clover did as well. To be honest, the explanation is quite simple. Zero told me not to. I had little choice. He didn't walk up and tell me, of course. He gave me a message engraved on a card. Snake reached into his sleeve and pulled out a small, stiff piece of paper. More Braille! Looked a good deal like the one he'd shown everyone on the central staircase. So you had 2 cards? No, only one. Huh? What do you mean? I thought that card just had some rules for the nonary game on it. Yes, it did. And those are the rules I read you. However, they were not the only thing on the card. There was something I didn't read. Well, perhaps you'd say there was something I couldn't read, and that was... Tell no one of the events that took place 9 years ago. Tell, and I activate your sister's detonator. Oh. Well, Snake nodded. What about Clover? Did she get a message from Zero too? I don't believe she did. But doesn't it strike you as strange that Zero would shut my mouth, but not hers? Yeah, that does seem a little weird. To be on the safe side, however, I told her it was best not to tell anyone. Still, apparently she told you. That girl. What's wrong with her telling me? I figured some stuff out with the things she told me. I mean, it looks like the whole activator-detonator thing was just a bluff. She's prancing around downstairs, happy as a clam now that you're back. Snake glanced down at Clover and Seven, examining one of the bookshelves. That's very true. I've decided I can trust you. I've decided to tell you the truth. The chance that Santa is Zero is very high. I feel I can assume Santa doesn't have the time to observe us at the moment. At any rate, even if he were, I very much doubt he would kill us. Why not? Clover told me about the 4-leaf clover, about the words. If he knew about that, then he was in the group during the first experiment. I'm sure of it. He wouldn't kill us, no matter what the situation was. Snake paused and cocked his head as though he was listening to something very far away. His face looked dark, as though something was weighing on him. Hey, Snake. Junpei wasn't quite sure what to say. Snake turned and looked at him. Yes, I know. You want to know what happened during the experiment? Yeah. How much do you know? Junpei revealed to Snake everything Clover had told him. The morphogenic field in the experiment 9 years prior that had dealt with it. How the experiment had taken place simultaneously at 2 locations, one being the ship and the other being a building in Nevada. How they played the nonary game. He told him everything. And finally, he told him how a girl had died during the experiment. Oh, she told you all that, did she? Snake looked down, his face was tight. A slight tremor shook his body, and he tried to hide it. He was putting on a good front, but even Junpei could tell that he was holding back something deep and powerful. He made as if to brush something from his face and looked up at Junpei. At any rate, I know how much you've learned. All that remains for us to determine is who did this and why, right? Yes. Can you tell me what happened? Snake nodded slowly. People who organized the initial experiment were from a company called Cradle Pharmaceutical. There were 4 of them running the show. Oh! Oh, I just realized. I kept saying, why would Ace tell Santa about Cradle Pharmaceutical? Wouldn't he fear that that would be exposing himself? Like, why would he tell himself about it? Tell him about it. But then I realized, just now, he didn't have to. Santa already knew. So that's not... Okay, I was thinking that was a plot inconsistency, like, would Ace would reveal that, really? But he didn't know. Santa just knew it all along, and decided that he might as well tell us. Like, give us a hint, as it were. Interesting, okay. Gentaro Hongo. That would be Ace. Nagisa Nijisaki. Teruaki Kobuta. Kagachika Musahito. Hongo is the CEO of Cradle Pharmaceutical. He was Ace. And then let's see, the other three, that would be the Ninth Man. This is Ace. This is the fake snake, Mr. X. And this would be the ship captain. The only thing I'm kind of confused about is, I think the Ninth Man is the fourth person. They made it kind of weird. It seemed like, we were acquaintances or something, but it's like, he never really explained that, it was never outright said, I don't think, that the Ninth Man was the fourth one, but I think that would make the most sense. Nijisaki was his right-hand man, and did the lion's share of the planning. Kubota led the company's research and development division. Musashito was the majority stockholder. It was these four people who planned the initial experiment. Let me simplify it for you. Hongo designed it, and Nijisaki put it all together. Kubota developed the technology required, and Musashito provided the cash. So it's Hongo, Nijisaki, Kubota... Oh my gosh, those freaking names are hard. Let's call them Ace, Mr. X, the Ninth Man, and Cap. I wonder why I'm using those names. Junpei couldn't shake the sense that he had heard those four names somewhere before. What? How? You haven't seen inside the safe, not in this playthrough. Unless I was right about this being some kind of virtual bullshit? I don't think so. Are they really going to go that direction? Of course, more than 4 people were required to conduct an experiment of this scale. To that end, they organized a top-secret team to assist them with their research. All in all, they gathered 10 people or so. Those 10 completed their team, and they were able to begin the project. They named it the Nonary Project. The purpose of the experiment was to research the prospect of controlling a human mind through sheer will. The vessel, I suppose you could say, for this control was the morphogenic field. Why did the glycerins suddenly just begin to crystallize? Why did the crystal structure of EDT undergo a sudden change? Why did the rats improve their puzzle-solving skills with each generation? Experiments with humans produced the same results. The more people who knew the answer to a question, the more people there were who could answer correctly without having seen the problem before. So is that what's happening with Junpei, maybe? Oh, maybe that's it. Maybe he's not Zero. Maybe it's just that he's learning these things from an alternate pathway self? Or maybe there's another Nonary game going on somewhere else again? I don't know. Why? How? The answer is that the shape of the answer has been stored in a field invisible to the naked eye. And through that field, the resonant event transmits information related to the answer. That's essentially the idea behind morphogenic fields. That's just a theory. A game theory! Can't bring yourself to believe it? Not really. Let's say someone killed another person because the devil told them to do it. Whether the devil exists or not has no relevance to the murderer. They believe the devil exists. Whether or not he does is immaterial. So what matters here is that Hongo believed in the morphogenic field. Snake nodded. But I still don't get it. You said they wanted to figure out how to control people. Right? That is what you were saying. Yes. So how are they going to do that with a morphogenic field? I'll keep it simple. Let's suppose 10,000 people have solved a certain problem. The chance of you knowing that answer, even if no one has told you, will go up. Let's have another example, shall we? Say about 1 million people were to do a handstand right now. Tomorrow, the chances of you doing a handstand would be higher. Even if you had heard nothing of this hypothetical mass handstanding. Mankind's thought process and actions are all a part of a resonant event. All of the resonant events encoded in the fields are projected onto you. Of course, this assumes you believe in this theory. Do you follow so far? Yeah. But let's say, hypothetically, that there was a person who had the same effect as those millions of people, what would happen? That one person would do a handstand. Other people would find themselves wanting to do handstands as well. Can you imagine what a person with powers like that would be able to do? Come on, there's no way. I'm not done. Imagine another scenario. Imagine another person. This is an ordinary person, let's say. He does a handstand. What if there was someone who could grab the resonant event he created by doing that, and use it to make other people do handstands? What happened then? The person who had the power to write to the field and someone who can read from the same. You could think of them as the writer and the reader, or the transmitter and the receiver. What would the world be like if there were people with abilities like these? Junpei thought about it for a moment. So the transmitter's resonant event can be transmitted through the field and sent to the receiver. And then the transmitter can control the receiver however they wish. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah, it's close enough at least. Come on, that's just crazy. Well, if you want to prove that, then you'll have to test it first. At least, that was how they thought. That was why they decided to do their experiment. That was how the Nonary project began. Snake suddenly looked very serious. Junpei, have you ever heard of the Ganzfeld experiment? I think so. Again, in this Let's Play at some point, but I don't remember where. That was an experiment in telepathy, right? They put a pair of subjects in separate rooms, and showed one of them a picture and asked the other one what they saw. Interesting, I'm impressed. Yes, that's exactly correct. So why'd you bring up the Ganzfeld experiment? It was used to screen subjects for the Nonary project. The hospital in a remote town was affiliated with Cradle Pharmaceutical. Hongo used it to conduct experiments on visiting children in secret. Some of them, he found, had potential. He began to gather children that showed promise, children that seemed as though they might be able to access the field. Of course, none of them volunteered. They were kidnapped. His face barely moved as he spoke. There were 9 pairs of siblings taken, for 18 children total. Oh, all siblings! And they were all put in different games. Gotcha. Reasons that were not fully understood at the time. Each pair had 1 transmitter and 1 receiver. They were split perfectly. As such, the 18 children were split into 2 groups of 9. Wait, 18? I thought it was only 16 children. Yeah, I remember there being an article about 16 kidnapped children. Where does the last 2 come from? I guess we'll find out in a bit. The children who were put in Group Q were the ones who excelled at transmitting. They were transferred to the mock experiment building known as Building Q in the Nevada desert. Children who excelled at receiving were put in Group A. The members of Group A were placed on the former hospital ship Gigantic. From the experiments he had conducted so far, Hongo had learned the following. There are 2 things that can increase one's resonance with the fields. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. Have you ever been faced with an especially difficult problem and thought about it very long and hard, till finally an answer suddenly appeared in your mind? It may seem obvious to say so, but that is what is meant by epiphany. The information obtained through that epiphany can be easily transmitted through the fields, or it can be easily interpreted. Adding danger to that equation allows for even easier field access. Therefore, Hongo set up a number of puzzles across the Gigantic. Participants had to solve each puzzle before they could move to the next room. Of course, he hadn't forgotten to include danger. More specifically, he had detonated a bomb in the hull of the Gigantic. Children in Group A were forced to play the Nonary game as the ship sunk. By forcing the children into a life or death situation, Hongo hoped to increase the likelihood of their tapping into the fields. The children from Group Q, on the other hand, were confined to the mock experiment building, Building Q. Building Q duplicated the interior and the puzzles of the Gigantic exactly. Aha! Hongo explained the situation to the children in Group Q. They probably also thought they were on a boat, even though they weren't. Which means it's possible we're in the building. Solve the puzzles you find throughout the rooms. When you solve them, transmit that information to the children in Group A. To succeed, they will be able to solve the puzzles and escape. If you failed, the Gigantic will sink and your brothers and sisters will drown. Oh, okay, so no, they straight up said, you're not in the boat. Do you know why the astronauts of Apollo 13 were able to return to Earth safely? Because NASA had access to a replica of the Apollo 13 capsule. All the equipment, the instruments, everything, all of it identical. NASA was able to replicate the situation the astronauts were facing, putting themselves in the same situation. They attempted to solve the problems they knew the astronauts were experiencing. Once they had found solutions, they reported their findings to the men aboard the actual capsule. That was how they were able to return safely. It was the same with the Gigantic and Building Q. Children from Group Q had to use the power of Epiphany to solve the puzzles they found and transmit what they learned through the field. Children of Group A, however, had to access the fields to learn how they might advance to the next stage. That is the simplest explanation I can imagine. Snake sounded defeated. His half-hearted attempt at derision served only to show how much the story had affected him. Just as Junpei was about to speak, "Hey, Junpei! Snake! How much longer are you two gonna sit around on those bony asses? Get down here already!" Seven's voice echoed up from below. Snake took a deep breath and blinked rapidly, as if just waking up from a long nap. "He's right. Let's go, shall we? We don't have much time. We need to get out of here, and soon." Snake headed for the stairs, but Junpei put out an arm to stop him. "Hold it. There's one more thing I want to ask you." "Hmm? Are you sure that there were 18 kids?" "Why?" "Well, I thought it was only 16. "Oh, yes. That was what they said on the news, wasn't it?" "Yes, I have no doubt that 18 children were abducted and used in Hongo's experiment. After all, you couldn't exactly play Nonary game with any less, could you?" "Well, yeah, but are you saying the news got it wrong?" "Yes, I am. There were 2 more children. However, they had no relatives that I'm aware of. Imagine no one filed a police report when they went missing." "That would be Santa's group. Yeah, Santa and his sister. They were brother and sister, like Clover and I. Their brother's name was Owie." "Owie is Santa, okay." His sister's name was... Her name was... Were you like lovers or something? Snake couldn't seem to bring himself to continue. "Did you get into a relationship?" He looked as if what he was about to say brought him great pain. "Her name was a... Oh! What?"